Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel. My name is Lovely. I'm going to tell you my story today. I used to think I would keep this story a secret and never tell it again. But what breaks my heart is that I am the one to blame for this. Although the story sounds impossible and like something out of a movie, it's all true for me. It doesn't matter how hard I try to forget what happened. It stays in my mind and bothers me every day. I think I'll never be able to make up for what I did or fix things with the person I hurt so badly. A loss of trust was one of the mental scars he left behind. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't take back what I did. My parents and I live in the small town of Carmo on the coast of Lovelyfornia. It's a peaceful and beautiful place. My dad, Gage, runs a well-known fish restaurant in the area. He always takes care of his body and loves going to the gym because of this. Even though he is getting close to 50 years old, his body stays toned and strong and makes him look much younger than he is. He is strong, sure of himself, and kind to me. All the time. The high school near our house has a literature teacher who is my mother, Yelisa. She is always delicate and sweet, and she loves reading great books. She sits by the window every night and reads books in the soft light. She always gives me wise advice and deep love. The way my mom taught me to live was honest and kind from the time I was a kid until I became an adult. Both of my parents loved me and did everything they could to care for and protect me. When I was younger, I would run to my dad when he got home from work, throw myself into his arms, put my little arms around his neck, and hug him tight. My dad was always the safest and most comfortable place for me. Just being in his arms seemed like it would make everything better. I didn't think much. All I knew was that I was safe and loved. I liked new and pretty things too, and I was an open girl. I often picked out the most beautiful and expensive dresses I had. When this happened, I'd run to my parents, spin around a few times, and wait for them to compliment me. My parents always smiled and told me nice things about myself because they loved me. Just hearing those nice things made me feel like the happiest girl in the world. Used to sit on my dad's knee every night. After dinner, while the rest of the family watched TV, he held me in his arms all the time, and his hugs were sweet and reassuring. I was spoiled like that as a child, and it was hard to break the habit. Even when I was older, I still liked to sit on my dad's lap like I was a little girl needing love and safety in his arms for me. That habit was a way to connect with other people and a small thrill. I never wanted to lose the last few times I sat on my dad's lap or ran to hug him. Though it felt different, what he did was so strange that I couldn't help but notice it. It wasn't as easy for him to accept my hugs as it used to be. Instead, there was a pause, and his arms got a little tighter than usual. The way my dad looked at me had also changed. They weren't askant and warm as they are when a dad loves his kid sometimes. I could see confusion in his eyes, like he was trying to hide something from me that I couldn't figure out. Sometimes my heart beats fast as if my gut is telling me something is wrong, but I don't believe it. This strange feeling always stays with me, making me think that things aren't as CC as they used to be. Maybe I'm overthinking it, or it's just a mood. As I already said, my dad likes to work out. So even though he is older, his body looks strong and stylish, like it did when he was younger. I've always looked up to him as a strong and charming dad. There's no doubt in my mind that my father is still very handsome. He has broad shoulders and a toned body. Even now, every time he walks by, I still like him a lot for some reason. I can't quite explain. Maybe it was his confidence or the way he made me feel like he was in charge that made me think of when I was a kid, and he was my whole world. But things have been a little different lately. Not only did the daughter admire her father, but she also felt something mysterious and hard to explain. It seemed like I was staring at my dad for longer than normal, and whenever I was near him, I felt like something was off. Then, as usual, my dad was already there when I got home from school. When he got home, he always got there before my mom did. He sat on the couch and watched TV. I saw him sitting there, calm and at ease, as soon as I walked through the door. No matter that I was an adult, it ran to him, without thinking twice. It felt so normal without thinking. I jumped on him and sat on his lap like a kid had. Always gave me a hug. But this time, it was different. Even though the hug was still warm, the mood between us had changed, which made me feel less at ease than before. Though I felt something, I tried to ignore it by telling myself it was all in my head, but it wasn't a feel-good feeling. I felt something touch me while I was sitting on my dad's lap to begin with. I tried to ignore it, telling myself that it was just a strange situation I was in or something in his pocket. But as I sat there longer, it became clearer, like a force that I couldn't fight. My heart started to beat faster, and the air felt strange, heavy, and stuffy. I was ashamed and didn't know what to do. I used to feel safe and secure when I was close to someone, but now it makes me worried and uncomfortable. I tried to stay calm by staying still, but my heart was full of unsolved questions like mine. Dad's eyes were calm and polite. We didn't say anything and just sat there in the stuffy room until Mom walked in and broke the quiet. I wanted to get up, but it felt like my legs were tied together and I couldn't move. Dad didn't say anything. He just looked at me seriously, and I knew that the kindness in his eyes wasn't there like it used to be. The door then opened with a loud sound when my mother walked in. The heavy mood was broken. We quickly turned away from each other, and I stood up trying to look like nothing was wrong, but the strange feeling didn't go away. It was heavy on my heart, like it could never go back to how it was. I could tell something had changed inside. Even though everything looked fine, it looked like my dad cared more about me. He often asked about me and focused on small parts of my life that he had missed before he started giving me gifts and new clothes that I hadn't asked, for I didn't understand those gifts at first. But I finally realized that this care wasn't like fatherly love. I could never get rid of the strange feeling that came with it. It felt like we were becoming a pair instead of a dad. And son, there was more than one difference. Between my dad and me, his eyes looked farther away, and there were longer stretches of silence than before. I could tell that our relationship was changing. But I didn't know how to handle it. The wall between me and my dad finally came down one day, and it was a moment I'll never forget. The day in question was my mom's work trip, because the school told us to only my dad and I stayed at home. When I got home from school and walked into the house, I was shocked to see something I hadn't expected on the dining room table. My dad had set out a delicious dinner for us. The mood in the house changed all of a sudden and became almost romantic. 2 bottles of red wine were already on the table, and lit candles made the room smell great. I was so shocked that I couldn't hide it. I laughed out loud at my dad and my eyes got bigger. "Why are you giving me so much?" thought today. I still thought it was just a coincidence and a nice treat. I had no reason to think anything else was going on with his usual smile. My dad replied that he had something good to say at the restaurant and wanted to celebrate something that had gone well. I was happy too, so I didn't ask any more questions. I just wanted to enjoy dinner with my dad. There was a steady flow of wine in the glasses, and the soft lighting made the room feel cozier and more intimate than ever. At the moment, I didn't feel anything wrong. Everything seemed too normal and familiar, but as time went on, this closeness slowly took on a new meaning, a feeling I couldn't put into words. We ate and talked, and I told them stories from my youth when I was a girl who always clung to her dad. Small jokes and sweet memories made us both laugh, and it felt like all the stress from before had gone away. There was laughter coming from all over the warm room, and it felt closer between us than ever. We sat closer together after 2 bottles of wine were finished, and I never planned to ask, "Do you like me?" But since I was drunk, I asked him out of the blue, "Do you like me?" I asked for this to find out more about the tourists instead of the people on our Shanghai trip. I thought it might have been more than one or something really amazing. It wasn't like a kid calling out for a parent. My voice was quiet. The question wasn't simple, like a child's. It had a deeper meaning. Meaning like I was asking from a totally different point of view that I could never say when I was sober after being quiet for a minute. My dad turned around and looked at me with eyes that were deep and focused, as if he were looking at something inside me. Then He spoke back in a friendly voice with just one word that was heavy and full of hidden meaning when we both looked at each other. The space seemed to stop moving. We were no longer close like a father and son. Instead, we had a new kind of relationship that went beyond any limits I had ever known. I don't remember what drove me at the time, maybe the alcohol or the thoughts I was trying to hide. I reached out and gently hugged my dad's neck without saying anything. I had a strange feeling all over, but I didn't stop or think about it all. I knew ways that I couldn't control myself at that moment. My dad waited a while before giving me another hug. The wall between us was gone as his arms wrapped around my waist and squeezed me tight. We looked at each other for a long time, as if no words were needed. We seemed to know what the other was thinking behind their backs. We kissed each other without saying a word. At first it was soft and hesitant, like we were remembering a familiar softness. But after a few seconds, the hesitation went away and was replaced by a strong, powerful feeling. Our hugs got tighter, like we wanted to hold on to this moment for all time. My heart was beating fast, and the warmth of my dad's body made everything else around me go away. My dad then gently touched my back, and his hands looked at every line and breath. The initial kindness turned into longing touches, as if my dad couldn't hold back his rising desire. He carefully but eagerly ran his fingers over every part of my body as if he wanted to make sure he didn't miss anything. I shook every time he touched me or moved, like my skin knew how to respond to everything he did. It felt like my dad didn't want to let go. When he lifted me up as I put my arms around his neck, I could feel each quick breath. He moved right away and led me into the room, which was mostly dark except for a small light coming in from outside. Everything was forgotten about us. This point, it was like the end of the world after all. The thoughts went away. There was only a deep need and a link that words could not describe. When he put me on the bed, my dad kissed me again and our lips met again. It was like we couldn't be separated. His hot breath and the fast beat of my heart were mixing in my mind. He quickly started taking buttons off of my shirt with his hands. Every time someone touched me or undid a button on my clothes, I felt naked, and not just because my clothes were falling off. We were both showing how weak we were. That feeling made my heart race. But all of my doubts gradually went away. We didn't hold back anything that night. There were no more barriers or fears. It was like there were only the two of us in the world. It felt like we were trying to stamp each other's images on our minds and bodies with every move and touch. We gave each other everything, not just being close physically, but also bringing our feelings together and letting go of long-held desires. That night, they both found out that there were no longer any limits. At that very moment, there was nothing else. But each other. The next day when my mom got home, everything seemed to be fine again. I and my dad acted normally. We laughed and talked as if nothing strange had happened the night before. My mom didn't notice that my mood changed as usual. Everything went on as normal, like any other family. We ate breakfast together and talked about everyday things. But I knew that both of us knew what had happened. My father and I kept up our normal behavior, but we had fallen into a dark quiet, as if we were telling each other a secret that no one else knew. Every look and movement meant something different. We knew it was wrong, but we didn't stop. Our meetings got rushed in private, which made the struggle between guilt and want worse. Even though we knew it was wrong, neither of us planned to stop without words or vows. Every touch and look showed that we would keep going. Then one night my dad sneaked into my room without making a sound. While my mom was fast asleep, I had no idea that my dad was sleeping next to me with his arms around me because I was still very sleepy when I woke up. I was shocked by the strange warmth that wrapped around my body. I turned my head a little and saw his familiar face close by my lips, turned into a sweet smile after a moment of shock, and I hugged my dad at that time. I didn't care about anything else, just my dad and I were there. Dad, be gentle. Watch out. Mom won't listen. My voice was shaking, like the cold wind that came through the crack in the door. Each word was hard for me to say, like I was trying to hold back something inside that was about to burst. Even though my throat was tight, my heart was beating, fast as a reaction. My hands grabbed the blanket across my chest to try to stop the shaking that was going through my body. It felt like each breath was being held back by an unseen fear as I breathed deeper and deeper. It was very quiet in the room, and even the tiniest sound made my heart race. We were scared that other people would find out about our secret, which was our exciting love, and find out everything. We had been trained to hide. I couldn't say no every time Dad came over because I was so afraid of being caught. I understood I couldn't leave this relationship, even though I knew it was going to end badly. After a while, the day I had hoped to put off came. That day my mom called to let me know something had come up. She couldn't get home in time, so she would have to wait until the next morning, when I told my dad that we wouldn't be disturbed that night. We felt a little better for a moment. We didn't stress because we believed we had until the next morning to get things done. My mom came back earlier than planned and without telling me. We were so careless that we didn't notice when she walked in. She couldn't say anything when she saw that scene. I saw that everything was breaking down. She saw what looked like the end of the world, and everything fell apart. I was suffocated and couldn't speak. My dad also stood still, not being able to figure out what was going on. There was no room for patience or sympathy in the house. Because of the heavy, intense mood after seeing the horrible truth, my mom didn't say anything and just left the house without a word. Inside the house, the air seemed to have frozen. Things got weird, stressful, and embarrassing between my dad and me. When all the lies came out, we didn't know what to say or do after that. There was a deep quiet for days. She never came home, and in the end, she filed for divorce. It was my parents' choice to end their marriage, which I thought would last forever. I had to look at the broken pieces of a once happy family in a cold and empty house. I didn't know where to go and was feeling lost. I couldn't choose between my dad and mom. My father, who had helped me in the past, was now the reason I was falling apart. My mother had loved and cared for me since I was a child. But all of a sudden, she became distant, sad, and filled with unquenchable grief. I knew that my weak feelings and mistaken emotions had caused problems that could not be fixed because of choices I never thought would lead to this outcome. My whole family was crushed. Not only did the destruction hurt my mother, but it also hurt my father and me, and it made us lose love and trust in each other. Finally, I understood that all limits must be observed when family members talk to each other. You can't fix them after they're broken. No matter how strong the love is, it can't fix such big mistakes. I don't know where I'm going or who I'll go back to at this point in my life. I'm not sure if I can talk to my parents or if they still want me. In their lives, the people who used to be my family are now just bad memories, and I don't know what I'll do. Next, I just know that I need to learn how to accept the consequences of what I did and live with this pain forever. I'm sure that many people will blame me and say that I did terrible things after hearing this story, but that's okay. I know that everyone has a different opinion, and I'm open to hearing all of them. The most important thing is that I was brave enough to face my truth and accept the pain and consequences of my mistakes. Finally, I want to tell those of you who are listening that I want you to always pay attention. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel.